What's up everybody, back again with another guide, and today we're taking a look at the dreaded Mage Tower as a Guardian Druid. Now I want to start off by talking a bit about gear. I've seen a lot of guides talking about gear from past expansion and old crafted gear, etc. to stack as many sockets as possible, get the right trinkets, etc, etc, and for sure it will help, but it's far from needed, as I did this with my somewhat freshly dinged Druid with a grand total of 2 sockets. Only thing from old expansions I used was Greater Flask of the Current, as it gives a lot more agility than other flasks, and the potion of Unbridled Fury, which is just nuts for this. Huge shout out to Arrow Assassin Gaming for that tip, helped me out. And as far as my build, I went for Brambles for more damage on adds and in the last phase. Wild Charge, cause I ain't no god tier gamer who never gets knocked back, and yeah, Wild Charge for the win. Then I went for Restoration Affinity for more passive healing as well as Rejuve, but more on that soon. Then I went for Mighty Bash for last phase to extend the Enrage a bit. Galactic Guardian just worked the best for me. Survival of the Fittest to get lower bark skin cooldown so it lines up with all the adds, and then Rend and Tear. Now a lot of people I've seen do a slightly different build, which is Balance Affinity and Heart of the Wild, because it makes phase 1 easier, but my aforementioned build just worked better for me. Try them both, a lot, 2 damn much. Damn you, Kruul. Other than that, keep in mind that your Covenant abilities and Conduits don't work here, and neither does any legendary effect on any legendary item. Now with that out of the way, let's go over the fight itself, starting off with the main mechanics. If you already know how the mechanics of this fight works, just skip ahead a bit. Main goal is to defeat the 2 bosses without Velen or Corvo dying. Velen will spawn orbs every 30 seconds that last for 2 minutes, and you can have up to 4 of them on the ground at any time. If you step on one of these, you, Velen, and Corvo will instantly get full health, and all enemies will be blinded / disoriented for a few seconds, so it's extremely useful. However, you want to use as few of them as possible in phase 1 so you can start phase 2 with 4 of them up. With that said, let's start with phase 1, which is Inquisitor Varys. Now, the boss itself has an aura or on-ground effect around him that reduces your max HP or, well, stamina for every stack that you get, and getting more than 4 or 5 stacks of this will make things very dicey. Livable, but dicey. Above that, you're gonna die. He also spam casts Mind Rend, which does a bit of damn, which is only really scary if you're above 5 stacks and have adds on you. And most importantly, Varys will also cast Drain Life, which has to be interrupted as soon as possible or the boss will heal, eventually to full health. Now, throughout the fight, boss will also spawn adds, Eyeballs, Infernals, and Nether Horrors. The Eyeballs will fixate or focus on you every now and then while they're up. If you don't face it and look at it, the eyeball would knock you back, and they're immune to physical damage. Hey-ho, Moonfire! Now, for the Infernals, they will do a frontal AoE cone knockback, and if you get hit, you'll be flying. If, or rather when this happens, you can wild charge back or use a Goblin Glider to get back so you don't fly off the platform. On top of this, these Infernals will also pulse out a bit of AoE and slowly kill themselves. Once dead, they'll go inactive for a bit and then respawn, and eventually you'll have up to 3 Infernals running around. Lastly, there's the Nether Horrors. 4 of them spawn from portals around the room. They slap a bit, but most importantly, they have an AoE cast and channel called Nether Storm. They will cast it at the same time, all 4 of them, and when it starts pulsing, you will die really fast. Best way to counter this is simply wait for the cast to go off, and just as it does, use In-Cap Roar, because if you interrupt them while they start the channel after the cast, they won't recast it, or kill them before it gets dangerous. But I recommend the in-cap version. Now, in phase 2, the eyeballs no longer spawn, but the Nether Horrors still spawn every now and then, and the Infernals will still knock you around, and if you have 3 up, well, you still have 3 up. But instead of Varys, you now face Kruul. Kruul has 3 abilities: Annihilate, Nether Stomp, and Twisted Reflection. Annihilate deals a shit ton of damage, increases damage taken by it by 110%, and you can kinda safely survive 3 of them. The 4th one is a bit sketchy to survive, but doable. And Nether Stomp, Kruul just jumps on your location, spawns fire puddles underneath, and fire puddles are bad. Don't stand in them. Most importantly, there's the Twisted Reflection. If this cast goes off, any damage you do to Kruul, heals him for 5% and it lasts for 45 seconds. So if you don't interrupt, he goes to full health, you cannot kill him, it's a wipe. On top of this, every now and then beams will spawn at the edge of the platform and travel across. If you get hit, you take a tiny bit of damage, but you also get dragged with them. But you can move through them, so just do that. So with that out of the way, let's break down phase 1. Now, the strat I went for was kinda slow and steady. I popped Berserk on pull and I stayed in on boss until he cast his first drain life. Usually that's around 5 to 6 stack of the HP reduction you get by being near Varys. Following that, I move out, rejuve myself, and then Moonfire spam boss a bit and eyeballs as they spawn. When the Nether Horrors spawn, you can aggro them simply by having a rejuvenation up on yourself. But I usually try and Moonfire each of them before I stack them up on boss. Make sure to pop Barkskin when they spawn for some extra damage. You can pretty much have it up for every set of ads if you time it correctly. When they start casting, wait for the cast to finish and then press in-cap roar. If Varys is nice, he'll also cast Drain Life during the ads. If not, move out, Moonfire and Wrath spam a bit and Skull Bash when he casts Drain. If you're unlucky, you'll refresh your stacks, so to be safe you can Mighty Bash him, move out, reuse yourself a bit, and commence the Wrath and Moonfire spam. Now, when the first Infernal spawn, keep in mind that it gradually die by itself, but I usually throw a Moonfire at him anyways to make him die faster, and if they're low, I spam them a bit extra just to get him down fast. Whenever there's an Infernal up or multiple Infernals, my approach is to always move in circles, sideways, and never backtrack. I've done that mistake, backtracked right into a knockback several times, don't do it. And whenever it was somewhat safe, I just stand outside of Varys Aura and spam Wrath, as it's a lot safer than always being on high stacks of the HP reduction. Might take a minute extra, but slow and steady wins the race. Now, after that, it's pretty much rinse repeat for phase 1. It does get progressively more hectic as you get more Infernals, but the playstyle is the same. Run in circles when Infernals are up, Moonfire eyeballs ASAP, rejuvenate yourself often, Barkskin on ads, in-cap interrupt Netherstorm, and always interrupt Drain Life. Now let's talk phase 2 instead. As soon as Varys dies, Kruul the Slapper spawns and eyeballs despawn. Now as soon as he spawns, you want to pop Berserk, Unbridled Fury Potion, and Drums, and just focus down Kruul, only Kruul. When the beams that drag you around spawn, just run through them instantly when they get close. The damage they do is kinda so better to just focus on slapping Kruul instead of avoiding them. Make sure to interrupt Twisted Reflection or you cannot kill Kruul, and trust me, nothing is more infuriating as doing phase 1 and then missing the interrupt at the start of phase 2. It's horrible. Now for the annihilations, first one is fine with just some Iron Fur up. For the second one I used Survival Instinct, third one Survival Instinct and Barkskin if available. And then the fourth one I often just flopped on. Now, the hardest part of phase 2 is just meeting the DPS requirement, or rather not getting the 4th or 5th Annihilate, as you will probably die. And this is where the orbs on the ground that Velen spawns comes into play that I mentioned earlier. You use these to effectively extend the Enrage. I usually use them to delay the 4th Annihilate. You could potentially use it on the very first Annihilate and then on the 4th, because you might have enough time to get a new one back. But I mostly use them on the 4th. You can also use Mighty Bash and in-cap roar in a pinch to extend it a bit more, although I don't recommend the in-cap roar as you kinda want it for the Nether Horrors that still spawns during this. So pretty much what that means is, as soon as the boss casts his 4th Annihilate, run into an orb, then commence nuking. When they stop being disoriented and cast Annihilate again, pop a new orb, and you keep doing that. When you're out of orbs, you go for the Mighty Bash. Perhaps the in-cap roar, and if you're lucky like I was, a 5th one spawns and you can delay it a bit more. Now, keep in mind that these Nether Horrors, unless you aggro them, they will beeline straight for Velen and kill him in just a few seconds, regardless of phase. And if they cast their AoE next to him, he pretty much gets sent to another dark oblivion. It's just gone. So it's important to keep track of them, even though that phase is hectic AF. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Only other thing I did was try to transition into phase 2, either during Nether Horrors or right after I've killed them. And if possible, with Infernals being on low health or that they've just died. It gives you a little bit more breathing room at the start of phase 2, as the Infernals need to respawn and the Nether Horrors has a delay before they spawn the next time. Because you really just want to burn all your cooldowns and everything and just focus on Kruul at the start of phase 2. And it's not the end of the world if you extend phase 1 just a little bit to accomplish this. It helped me at least. So yeah, have fun. This is to date the only encounter that makes me somewhat nerd rage. It's really fun and God, it's so frustrating. Love it though. So yeah, if you have any questions at all about this fight, hit me up in the comments or become a patron and get access to the Stankie Discord, where you can get help with anything PvE related. Raids, Mage Tower, perhaps a very mean quest mob. Don't forget all the YouTubey stuff, like, comment and subscribe. Thank you all for watching and I will see you next time. Ja, det var nog det hela.